Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Season 8 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today I'll be covering Jungle Udyr, the Spirit Walker.
Our rage is beyond your control.
Alright, well let's start off this guide by first looking at Udyr's pros. So Udyr is a champion with some very high single target damage, and he's a very strong duelist. This is because he can stun his enemy with his E ability, hop into his Q to do a ton of single target damage, and even activate his W as a really nice defensive. Since Udyr is such a strong duelist, he also makes a pretty good split pusher as well because he can 1v1 anybody who comes to stop him, and he can take down towers really quickly with the attack speed from his Q ability. Then finally, Udyr is a pretty easy to learn champion, so he's a great jungler for new players to learn. His abilities are really easy to understand, and he doesn't have any skill shots that new players would tend to miss. Now Udyr, just like every other champion out there, does have his fair share of cons. He is a champion that completely lacks AoE damage, of course unless you do go for a Phoenix stance Udyr, but honestly, Phoenix stance is not that great right now, and you're kind of setting yourself up for failure if you do so. He's also a very kiteable champion. Now he does have movement speed on his E ability, but he doesn't have any great gap closers, so you can kite Udyr for days if you are the right champion. He's also a champion that has pretty weak teamfight. He definitely excels in 1v1 situations, and he is also very weak if he does fall behind. For your runes, I'd recommend going Precision and Sorcery, grabbing Press the Attack as your keystone. Press the Attack is going to give Udyr a lot of nice burst damage because when you activate your Q ability, you get a lot of attack speed so you can proc it insanely quickly. Then for the rest of the Precision side, you go for Triumph, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Triumph is fantastic so you get restored health and gold whenever you get a takedown, Alacrity is great because you get some extra attack speed, and Coup de Grace is great so you deal extra damage to low health enemies. I then recommend going into the sorcery side so you can get yourself some nice movement speed so it's not as easy to kite you. You get Celerity for 3% extra movement speed and extra AD based on that movement speed, and Water Walking so you get extra movement speed and attack damage when you are in the river. Both are pretty damn strong runes and really help you not get kited. For your first summoner spell, you'll want to pick up Flash. It's definitely a great summoner on Udyr because although you have some pretty decent mobility from your E, you don't actually have a gap closer or an escape ability, so it's fantastic in those situations. A lot of the time it's definitely worth flashing onto an enemy with your bear stance to stun them, swapping into your Q, and deleting them instantly. Now as for your second summoner spell, you should of course go for Smite since you will be jungling. It's really strong on Udyr because it allows you to clear through the jungle, secure objectives like Dragon and Baron, and of course you need it to buy your jungler item in the first place. The blue smite is also really strong because it allows you to slow the enemy so you can get up to them with your bear stance to stun them and then delete them with your Q. Udyr's passive ability is Monkey's Agility, which is a pretty strong passive because you get some stacking movement speed and attack speed. As long as you're swapping your stances properly, you're going to have 15 bonus movement speed and 30% bonus attack speed, which can really help you get on top of targets and kill them, of course. This passive stacks up to 3 times, and you have to keep in mind that it also puts your stances on a 2-second cooldown, so don't use them if you're going to need them later on in an engagement. The second part of your passive is called 4 stances, and this just means that you have no actual ultimate, you have 4 basic abilities. You could be putting points in your R right at level 1, but Phoenix Stance Udyr is not too strong at the moment, so of course you're not going to be doing that. Your Q ability is Tiger Stance, and this is Udyr's bread and butter ability. It is a purely offensive ability that has some really high single target damage. It also has a stacking AD ratio of between 120 and 180%, which is insanely high, so it's very important to get points into this ability as quickly as you can. Now the thing you have to know about this ability, however, is that this bonus physical damage only happens at the 3rd stack. That means if you are already in this stance, you will have to attack a couple times to actually get this bonus physical damage onto the target. Now you can also, however, activate this stance to instantly generate 3 Tiger Stance, making your next auto attack actually proc this damage and also give you up to 70% bonus attack speed. So basically, when you are engaging onto a target, you want to activate your E for movement speed, get onto them and stun them, and then activate this instantly so you do get a bunch of damage onto the target. Udyr's W ability is Turtle Stance, which gives him some nice health return and also gives him a really nice shield whenever he activates it. This works kind of like your Tiger Stance in the fact that you have to wait for 3 stacks for your next basic attack to actually do the effect. For this stance, you will be healed for between 2.5 and 5% based on your missing health of your maximum health. That means it scales really well into the game if you do get a really high health pool and can give you some really nice health return. It also gives you a shield for 5 seconds whenever you do activate the ability. Now it is based on your AP however, so it's not going to be that massive, but it can give you some pretty nice survivability even though it is based off of AP. Udyr's E ability is Bear Stance, which gives him a really nice single target stun that also ghosts him and gives him extra movement speed. So as for the stance, this just stuns your target for 1 second whenever you auto attack them, and it does have an on target cooldown of 5 seconds. That means no matter your cooldown reduction or attack speed, you will not be stunning the target more than once every 5 seconds. Now this ability is pretty damn strong because you will be ghosted, which of course means you can run through minions and you'll get some scaling bonus movement speed as you put points into the ability. Since Udyr is such a kiteable champion, you will want to put points into this ability as quickly as possible, aside from your Q of course, because that ability is busted, but other than that, you definitely need to put points into your E. Now let's look at your R ability, Phoenix Stance, which isn't going to be used too much on Udyr because of your Q ability, but it's still an okay ability. This is your main source of AoE damage. Now you're not going to be putting points into it until 16, 17, and 18 because it's not that great, but even in the very late game, if you are split pushing, you could still activate this ability just for that AoE pulse to quickly clear minion waves. Other than that, there's not too much of a use for it because Q is by far your best damaging ability, so other than that, you won't really use it. For your skill order, you first want to focus on maxing your Q ability as quickly as possible. It is your main source of damage and has a scaling AD ratio, so it's important to get as many points in it as quickly as you can. You'll then want to focus on maxing your E ability second for that extra mobility because Udyr is a kiteable champion and having as much movement speed as possible is very important. You'll then want to focus on maxing your W ability third because it does give you a really nice defensive shield and it makes you have a little bit of extra durability. Then, of course, finally, you'll want to put your last 3 points into your R ability because it does have some nice AoE damage, and to be honest, you can't put your points anywhere else, so you kinda just have to. For my jungle route, I usually like to take my first buff with a leash from my bot lane, and then go on to the wolves, and then my second buff. Now this here isn't the best example because Sivir decides to steal blue buff by auto-attacking at the last second, but it is what I do on Udyr. Usually this blue buff would give me level 2, then I'd go on to the wolves and then do my red buff afterwards and hit level 3. At this point you'll have a point in both your Q, W, and your E ability, and then you can start ganking or take your scuttle crabs afterwards. Udyr is a champion that's not fantastic at clearing through the jungle because of his lack of AoE damage, so usually you'll just want to rush level 3 and then go on from there. When ganking, you'll first want to use your speed boost from Bear Stance to gap close and stun your enemy. Now keep in mind you could swap stances a couple times as well for that 15 extra movement speed as well. It's pretty solid in the early game and can get you onto the enemies. Either way, whenever you do get on top of the target, make sure you stun them of course, and then instantly switch into your Tiger Stance for that high single target damage. It will also quickly proc press the attack, so it's going to do a ton of damage when you do get onto the champion. If your teammates follow up a little slowly and you do need to soak some damage, you can always go into Turtle Stance to do that, or just to get an extra stack of your passive. Now Udyr is not the best team fighter out there, but you'll still obviously want to try to use your Bear Stance to engage onto an enemy. You either have the option of fighting on the front line and helping peel/dealing damage to the tankier targets, or you can always try to go in for flanks and get onto the squishies to instantly delete them with your Tiger Stance. This will kind of depend on your team comp. If you are the only tanky target on your team, then of course you're going to have to be on the front line, but if not, you can always go for flanks. If you are on that front line, make sure you're activating your Turtle Stance to soak as much damage as you can with the shield, and also give you some nice lifesteal. But other than that, you'll just want to be in Tiger Stance doing as much damage as you can. Now let's look at a couple of your hard matchups, and first up is Jax. Jax is going to be somebody you struggle against because he definitely outscales you and he can block a lot of damage with his E ability and then just do a ton of damage back towards you. Therefore, if you are trying to fight Jax early on, you have to try to bait out his E ability. If it stuns you, he's going to definitely win that trade on you. You'll also want to put as much pressure on lanes as you can so he can't just sit in his jungle farming in order to outscale you. For the next hard matchup here, I've got Nunu. Now he's a champion you can definitely beat 1v1 if you can get on top of him, but the problem is he can easily kite you with his movement speed and snowballs. Of course, he's also going to be able to dip into your jungle, consume a minion and just walk out, and there's not too much you can do about it. Against him, you'll definitely want to try to put some wards in your own jungle and catch him off guard, because if you do get to stun him and your team follows up, it's pretty free kills. For the next hard matchup here, I've got Rammus. Rammus, of course, is going to rush a Thornmail, and when he activates his defensives, it's going to be insanely hard to deal with him. He's also got insanely strong counter ganks because of the movement speed from his power ball, so you have to try to get deep wards into his jungle and keep track of where he is at all times. If you end up ganking a lane and Rammus comes in from behind and taunts you, it may be a very, very bad situation. And for the last hard matchup here, I've got Warwick. He's one of the few junglers that can actually outduel you because of his insane sustain and the fact that he has a really solid damage reduction from his E. Of course, he also gets a ton of health return from his Q and his ultimate as well, so he's just straight up hard for you to deal with. Just like against Rammus, you have to try to get some deep wards against him because he has very fast counter ganks, and if he sweeps in from behind and ultimates you, you're pretty much just screwed. Alright, now let's finish this off with the item build, which starts with a Hunter's Machete, refillable potion, and a warding totem. You'll want to go for the Hunter's Machete, of course, because you are single target damage, and you can get away with a refillable potion on Udyr because you do have the healing from your W. Now for your core build, you want to go for a Stalker's Blade and enchant it with either Warrior or Blood Razor. Blood Razor is my personal favorite because it works great with press the attack and the attack speed from your Q, and of course the Trinity Force. If however you want to just burst down people instantly and you're against a very squishy team, then a Warrior is also pretty damn solid. The choice is up to you, it is based on personal preference, and both are very solid first items. Either way, once you've selected your first item, you'll then want to go for a Trinity Force because it works fantastic on Udyr with his low cooldowns, and then get your choice of boots. All of the boots are pretty solid options, but I would recommend getting Merc Treads against high AP and CC heavy teams, and Ninja Tabbies against high AD teams. Now since Udyr is a tanky bruiser, he has a ton of different items that he can build and work perfectly on him. One of my favorites, however, is going for the Dead Man's Plate because it does give you some extra mobility, which is pretty huge on Udyr because you do struggle at getting on top of certain champions. You could then always get a Frozen Heart to get CDR capped and also reduce the attack speed of your enemies while also getting a shitload of armor. Then speaking of armor, you could either go for a Thornmail or a Randuin's. Thornmail's a really strong item because it does reflect damage and apply grievous wounds, and Randuin's is really strong because of the slow activation and the fact that it reduces critical damage. If you then instead want some magic resist, you can either go for a Spirit Visage or a Wit's End. Spirit Visage is really strong because it will increase the healing from your W, and Wit's End is a great way to add some more damage into your kit while also getting some magic resist. Then finally, if you're looking for some more damage and a nice health pool, you could get either the Steraks Gauge or a Titanic Hydra. Steraks Gauge is really strong because it will help you avoid getting bursted, and a Titanic Hydra is great if you do plan on split pushing for a lot of the game. Either way, for the example full build, I take that core build and get some Merc Treads and then get a Dead Man's Plate, Spirit Visage, and a Thornmail. You're still going to do a ton of damage because of the Titanic Hydra and the Blood Razor, but you're going to be very tanky with the Thornmail, Dead Man's Plate, and a Spirit Visage. And that's all I've got for Jungle Udyr. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and visit my video description below. I have a link to all my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server, so that's one you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching, I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.